Have you ever just stopped and wondered why money feels so complicated? It's funny, right? Because it turns out the real secret to getting ahead financially, it has way less to do with how smart you are and everything to do with how you act. So, let's dive into that. Let's explore the hidden psychology that's really running the show.
And that brings us to this really fascinating paradox. I mean, we all know someone like this, right? They're brilliant, maybe a genius in their field, but they are just terrible with money. So, why? Why does that happen? If being good with money was purely about being smart, shouldn't all the smartest people be the richest? That's the big question we're going to tackle here.
Okay, so picture this, because this really gets to the heart of it. On one hand, you've got a financial wizard, a total genius, but they're impulsive, they're driven by emotion, and they end up losing everything. Then, on the other hand, you have someone with just average knowledge about money, but they're patient, they're disciplined, and that's the person who ends up building incredible, lasting wealth. It just goes to show you, financial success is a soft skill. It's really about how you behave, not just what you know.
All right, so let's officially dive into our first section. We're going to really unpack this paradox. The idea that your behavior, well, it consistently beats raw intelligence when it comes to your money.
So, when we talk about behavior, what do we actually mean? It's not about being a whiz with spreadsheets or predicting the next big economic trend. Nope. It's all about managing your own emotions. It's about patience. It's about discipline. It's about how you react when you feel that pull of fear or greed. And that skill, more than anything you could read in a textbook, is what's really going to shape your financial future.
And the thing is, this whole behavioral side of things, it's also deeply, deeply personal. Which brings us right into our next section, figuring out your own unique financial story.
Here's a really simple but honestly a powerful idea. No one is crazy. Think about it. When you see someone make what looks like a terrible money decision, it's so easy for us to judge, right? But the truth is, their actions, they almost always make perfect sense to them based on their own unique way of seeing the world. And here's why that is. We're all looking at the world through the lens of our own personal experiences. I mean, if you grew up during a huge recession, the idea of putting money in the stock market might seem like absolute madness. But if you grew up during a massive boom, you might see that same risk as a can't-miss opportunity. The thing is, neither person is crazy. You've just learned completely different lessons from completely different worlds. Your financial logic is a product of your life.
Okay, so moving beyond our own personal psychology, there are two other huge forces at play here, forces that we almost never really talk about enough, and those are luck and what it truly means to be wealthy.
Now this first one, this is a tough pill for our egos to swallow. We absolutely love to think that every single one of our successes is because we're brilliant and every failure is some kind of mistake we made. But the reality is, luck and risk are like silent partners in everything that happens. You could have two people with the exact same brilliant strategy, but just because of timing or things they can't control, one succeeds like crazy and the other fails. Recognizing that luck plays a role, it keeps you humble when you win and helps you forgive yourself when you don't.
All right, let's switch gears and talk about wealth. Because we get this wrong all the time. We confuse being rich with being wealthy. Being rich is about your income. It's visible. You see it in the fancy cars, the expensive stuff. But wealth? Wealth is different. Wealth is what you don't see. It's the money you haven't spent. It's your savings, your investments, all the assets that are quietly working for you in the background. So what's the point of all that hidden wealth? What does it actually get you? I'll tell you, it's not just about buying more things. The real prize, the ultimate thing wealth gives you, is control over your time. It's the freedom to wake up one morning and just say, you know what? I can do whatever I want today. That freedom, that autonomy, that's the real payoff. That's the real goal. Okay, so how do we actually build this kind of wealth? The good news is you don't need a PhD in finance. You just need to get really good at using two incredibly powerful tools that every single one of us has access to: saving and time. Let's completely reframe how we think about saving for a second. It's not a punishment. It's not about depriving yourself. Saving is basically a superpower. It's the thing that gives you options in life. Think about it. Someone with no savings is trapped. They have to take whatever job comes along. They have to say yes. But someone with savings, they have the power to wait for the right opportunity, to change careers, to deal with an emergency without their world falling apart. Saving literally buys you control over your own life.
And when you take that saving and you combine it with time, well, that's when you unlock the magic of compounding. A small, regular investment, it might not look like much at first. For the first few years, it's kind of slow.
But then, after maybe 15 years, you see it start to pick up speed. And by year 30, the growth can be absolutely explosive. It's just like a snowball rolling downhill, getting bigger and bigger. So the real takeaway here isn't to chase crazy high returns. It's just to give your money as much time as possible to do its thing.
Of course, if it was really that simple, we'd all be wealthy, right? So, what gets in the way? Let's talk about the psychological traps that can mess up even the smartest people. And really, it all comes down to the two biggest enemies of any investor: fear and greed. When the market is crashing, that little voice of fear in your head is screaming, "Sell, get out now," right at the very bottom. And when things are flying high, the voice of greed is whispering, "Buy more, don't miss out," right at the peak. See, mastering your money isn't about outsmarting the market. It's about controlling these two powerful emotions inside your own head.
And this leads us to a really important idea. The best financial plan for you isn't the one that's mathematically perfect on paper, the rational one. It's the one that's reasonable. What does that mean? It means it's a plan you can actually stick with when fear and greed inevitably show up. Because a pretty good plan that you actually follow is a million times better than a perfect plan that you ditch the second things get scary.
So, how do we tie all of this together? Let's wrap up with the key ideas, the things that really lead to financial peace of mind.
All right, so here's what it all boils down to. First, your money is really just a mirror of your own psychology. Second, your behavior, how you act, is way more important than what you know. Third, simple patience is way more powerful than being a genius. And finally, all of this points to one last really big takeaway.
And this is it. This is the big one. In a world that is just driven by fear and greed, the ability to just stay calm, to stick to your plan, and let time do its thing, that's not just a nice-to-have skill. It is your single greatest competitive advantage. So the real question isn't, how do I get the highest returns? The real question is, how do I master my own mind?